What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than educated frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, we will be bringing you some Chinese fairy tales and fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Some fantasy tales.
Some
Fantasies.
fantasies.
Chinese fairy tales and some personal sexual fantasies.
I mean, the beautiful thing about them is that they're short. Fantasies don't have to be
I'm
long.
just saying a peacock is a fuckable bird.
Well, we're definitely going to get into some animals here.
Oh God, where's our
some Chinese critters.
There's some critters. We got some critters up here.
Yeah.
Team Squatch up here in search of the elusive faithful mouse.
That is exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah. So yeah, without further ado, Kimbo, go ahead and take it away there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Start with story 1. A faithful mouse. It's more like a poem. That's okay.
It's more like a poem. A poem about a mouse.
Pretty much. Yang Ting-yi tells about a time he saw 2 mice come into the open and a snake gobble one of them down.
Damn.
The other mouse, eyes popping like peppercorns,
Popping like peppercorns.
kept his distance as he glared.
He was popping his eyes like peppercorns.
Do you grind it?
So I'm going to start saying what it's called. My nipples are popping like peppercorns right now.
Jesus. The snake got the mouse it had caught into its belly and slithered for its hole. It was more than halfway in when the second mouse dashed forward and clamped its teeth around the snake's tail.
Hey, fuck half.
Furious, the snake backed out. The ever-nimble mouse darted to safety in a flash, and the snake gave chase but failed to catch the mouse. And so it returned to its hole. As it was entering, the mouse seized it by the tail the exact same way as before.
Fuck you, snake.
And each time the snake crawled in, the mouse struck, and each time the snake came out, the mouse ran.
You killed my brother, you son of a bitch.
This went on for quite a while. Can you imagine just sitting there watching this? First of all, I would like to know whose home you just have just random rats and fucking snakes coming and going.
Days. Yeah.
Look at this shit, National Geographic in my fucking bedroom.
That's what you used to do. You did, instead of having a TV, you'd just be like, what are you doing today? I'm going to watch the rats and snakes that crawl around my house. Okay. Remind me not to sleep over.
Right? Until the snake spat the dead mouse out onto the ground. That's how long it went on till.
Finally, the snake's over. Fine, fuck you.
Take your friend. The second mouse came up and cried over his friend, and then, squeaking dolefully, he picked up the corpse in his mouth and left. My friend, Cheng Liu, wrote a poem in its honor called The Faithful Mouse.
Mouse.
The end.
The end.
Short, simple, sweet, beautiful.
Yeah.
This one's kind of sad, though.
This one's kind of... I can totally see just getting high and just sitting there just watching it like, I'm gonna write a fucking poem. This shit's epic. That mouse was crying over its dead brother. In reality, the mouse is like, I'm going to eat my dead brother almost immediately.
Oh, God. Okay, so story number 2. The Loyal Dog. A man of Luan had run afoul of the law and was about to be executed. His son scraped together all the family savings, which came to about 100 pieces of silver, to appeal the case to the governor. When the son mounted his donkey and set out for the capital, his black dog followed after him. The son shouted at the dog to go home, but the moment he started to ride away, the animal followed again. Even when he whipped the dog, it hung around and slid after him. Man, donkey, and dog had gone a dozen miles or so in this manner, and when the son dismounted and hurried to the side of the road to relieve himself, then he began throwing stones at the dog until the animal finally fled for its life. Once free, the man and the donkey set out and made good time, when suddenly the dog reappeared, breathing so hard its sides were like pumping bellows. It snapped at the donkey's tail and ankles, and angrily the son laid his whip to his pet. It yelped and barked, but leaped ahead and snapped at the donkey's head as if it were trying to block the way. Angrier than ever, the son turned the donkey around and rode back the way he had came, driving the dog before him. When he had it running a long way ahead of him, he swung around and galloped towards the capital. It was nightfall when he arrived, and he felt for the satchel of silver at his side. Half the money was missing. He broke into a heavy sweat and lost his wits completely. All night,
dog robbed him.
I wish. All night he had tossed and turned until it struck him that there must have been a reason for the commotion the dog had made. He had to wait until early morning for the city gates to open, and then he rode carefully back the way he had came. With a sharp eye out for his money, travelers on the road were as thick as ants. However, he figured that there was little chance of finding it. He came to the spot where he had dismounted to relieve himself, and there, in the high grass, he saw his dog's lifeless body, its fur soaked as if it had been bathed. He lifted the dog's ear and saw the silver intact before his very eyes. Moved by the dog's devotion, the son brought a coffin and buried it. The place is still known as the Loyal Dog's Tomb.
Ah, poor Pooch.
I know, right? It's so sad.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, if I saw that shit, PETA would be after you.
Yeah. PETA would come at your ass.
For real.
Yeah, the WWF
Snapchat
would send
that shit.
the Macho Man after you.
We're
Different
looking heavily on
WWF,
you
but
guys.
still.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, and share. Yeah. Ring a bell.
If you are liking these stories so far.
Yeah, if you're liking them.
Or if you just thought that last one was sad too, just go ahead.
If you thought it was sad. Thumbs up if you think that was sad.
Give us a listen. This one's real short. I love it. Story number 3. Black and White. The philosopher Yang Chu had a younger brother named Pooh.
Pooh.
One day, Pooh left the house wearing white clothes. A storm came up and soaked them, so he changed into some dark ones, and when he returned home, his dog did not recognize him and barked furiously. Pooh was angry and raised his arm to beat the dog when his older brother said,
"Don't hit him. Would you recognize your dog if he went off white and came back home black, huh?"
The end.
Yeah, see? The end.
Moral stories, quick,
Moral
short.
story.
I love it. Moving right along, we have story 4. The dog goes.
They're all dog stories.
The dog goes to court.
We've upgraded from mice to dogs.
And then we'll get into tigers next. Because there's quite a few.
It's Critters edition. Yeah.
In the fall of the year, a traveler was riding home from a business trip with 500 or 600 pieces of silver in a country called Chongmu. He dismounted from his mule and sat by the roadside to rest. A young man with his long pole on which he was carrying a dog sat down beside him.
This is my dog pole.
Look at my long pole.
My dog pole. This dude was walking by with just a massive wiener.
The dog whimpered piteously at the merchant as if begging for his freedom. So the traveler bought the dog from the youth and set it loose. Meanwhile, the young man noticed that the merchant's sack was heavily loaded. He quietly followed the traveler to a deserted spot where he beat him to death with his pole. He dragged his body to a small bridge and crossed a stream.
The penis joke just got dark.
And then covered the corpse with sand and reeds, shouldered the sack, and left. Seeing the stranger dead, the dog kept out of sight but trailed the youth home. He took note of the place and left, running all the way to the country courthouse. It happened that the judge was opening that day's session, and the sergeants at arms were in position strict and severe. Sorry. The dog dashed forward and made a great outcry, half moaning, half appealing. He could not be driven off. The judge asked,
What? What's your complaint? I'll send an officer to follow you.
The dog led the officer to the foot of the bridge where the traveler's body was hidden, and then he barked towards the water. The officer pulled up the reeds and discovered the corpse, and he reported back to the judge, but there was no way to apprehend the culprit. The dog also returned to the courthouse.
It seems this man was bludgeoned to death with something fleshy and mushroom-shaped.
Where he barked and flung himself about. The judge asked,
You know well who did this. I might as well send officers to follow you.
This time the judge dispatched several men with the dog. They trailed him for 7 or 8 miles until they came to a house in a remote village. The dog entered it, leaped on the young man inside, and savaged him, tearing his clothes and drawing blood. The officers dragged the man to the courthouse, where he confessed and gave all the details of his crime. He told them,
The merchant's silver hasn't been touched.
And they returned to the house for it. Inside the merchant's sack of money, they also found a document with his name and village.
And his penis matched the shape of the wound on
Jesus.
his face.
The judge passed sentence on the young man and had the sack placed in public treasury. Again, the dog planted himself and barked without let up. The judge reflected, saying,
Hold on in the court. Although the merchant is dead, his family must be alive. The sack belongs to them. That must be why the dog is barking. I thought it said arcing. I was like, okay, this story just took a turn. And that's why we elected the dog supreme ruler of the entire empire. It was a wild 14 years.
So he sent his officers off to the dead man's village, and the dog followed. When they arrived, the merchant's family was terribly shocked to learn that he was dead. The man's son went back with the officers to Shangwu, where the culprit had already died in jail. The judge took the sack of silver, checked it carefully, and turned it over to the son. The dog, meanwhile, followed the son to Chongmu and then back again, wherein the coffin was escorted home. And all in the hundreds of miles that they covered, the animal conducted itself like a human being. The end.
The end. Yeah. He was smoking cigarettes. Walking on 2 legs. He actually showed us his law degree. He knew why he'd go to the judge.
It's Fluke.
It's Fluke.
Airbud
4.
You haven't seen that movie?
No.
It was like a golden retriever. The guy died, and he was like a lawyer and shit.
Yeah.
Came back as his son's fucking dog.
Oh, Jesus. Old school. Good pull.
I love that movie growing up. That was beautiful.
I wonder if that one ever made it to DVDs.
I don't think it did.
It was one where when they were doing the VHS transition, they're just like, no.
It's
what
not
about the one where the dog's a lawyer? What about the one where the dog's a star witness and works with a cop? Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah.
Turner and Hutch,
fuck
yeah.
Call Tom Hanks up.
I got you.
You get the role of a lifetime.
How do I know these movies right off the back so quick? I got you.
Yeah.
That's been done before.
You just got hooched.
All right. Story number 5. The Tale of the Trusty Tiger.
Oh. Meow.
One morning, a woodsman was walking through a bamboo grove. All of a sudden, he lost his footing and fell into a tiger's lair.
Oh, sorry.
2 little cubs were inside the pit, which was shaped like an upside-down bowl. Sharp, jagged stones stuck out on all 3 sides, and the front wall was smooth, but well over 10 feet high. It was an unbroken drop like a slide, and the tiger's pathway. The woodsman leapt up and fell back down a number of times, and then he walked around inside at his wits' end. Tearfully he awaited his death, and then the sun set, and the wind brought the tiger's howl. She scaled the wall and entered the pit with a freshly killed elk, which she tore in half for her 2 cubs. Next she saw the woodsman cowering on the ground. She spread her claws and flexed her front legs, but then circled him pensively as if she had a second thought. Instead of attacking, she fed him a scrap of the meat, and as he ate it, she went into her niche with her cubs to rest.
You're mine now. I'm going to raise you.
All right. The woodsman figured that the tiger was not hungry now, but would surely devour him come morning. Instead, the tiger leaped up out of the pit at the crack of dawn, and at midday she returned bringing a musk deer, which she had fed to her cubs, and as before, she threw him the leftovers to the famished woodsman, who devoured them. No problem.
She's fattening him up.
To relieve his thirst, he drank his own urine.
Okay. Bear Grylls.
This went on for nearly a month.
Jesus.
And gradually he became used to the tiger. One day, when the cubs had grown husky, the tiger put them on her back and went out. Frantic, the woodsman howled to the heavens.
Hey, save me there, Your Majesty.
And within moments, the tiger came back, folded her forelegs, and lowered her head before the woodsman. He climbed onto her back, and she vaulted up the wall. Meow. There, on the surface, she sat the woodsman down, took her cubs, and went on.
Meow.
He was left alone by the dark cliff in a dense grass, where there was no song of birds or any noise, but a shrill wind blowing out of the dark wood. More frantic than ever, the woodsman called out,
"Oh, hey, Your Majesty."
The tiger turned and regarded him. Sorry. Kneeling, the woodsman pleaded.
It was Your Majesty's kindness there that kept me alive and whatnot. But now we should probably be lost to one another. For I fear I can't escape all these wild beasts and stuff. And to guarantee my safety, you could favor me with your escort to the main highway over there. I'm sure some trucker will pick me up if I give him a little roadhead, if you know what I mean. Shall be in your debt for my diet till I die. I'll be in your debt there, Tiger.
The tiger nodded and preceded the woodsman to the main road. Then she turned around and stood staring at him. Again, the woodsman expressed his thanks, saying,
"Oh, I'm a poor man from Ottawa over here, from the West Gate over there, and I leave you. We're not likely to meet again, though, so I probably won't ever have to refill that promise I gave you. But, when I get home, I'm going to raise a pig, and, I'll wait for you with the pig. We'll have a big cookout. Get some beers. We'll have a real good time. We'll do it on, it's Super Bowl Sunday. How's that sound? We'll do it for Super Bowl Sunday, down by the
post station.
By the post station there. I'll come in and enjoy the feast over here. Don't forget. Go Bears.
The tiger nodded, and the woodsman wept. And the tiger wept too. When the woodsman arrived home, his astonished family questioned him, and after he told his story, they rejoiced together. At the appointed time, he prepared a pig and took great pains in butchering it. The tiger, however, arrived at the appointed place before the appointed hour. Unable to find the woodsman, she actually entered the west gate, where she was seen by the residents. They summoned... It's like Olaf.
Oh.
Hi.
Oh, geez, what's a tiger? It's a tiger wearing a football jersey.
They summoned some hunters who closed the main gate and wings and gathered around the tiger. Their spears at the ready, arrows at the bow. They agreed to capture her alive and present her to the local authorities. The woodsman ran to the rescue, crying out to the crowd,
"We're gonna take this tiger in and book him for jaywalking." Yeah, no, this tiger here is a good. She's a good feller over here, you know. She kept me alive, and she's a big Bears fan. I beg y'all not don't hurt the tiger over here. I mean, come on.
But the hunters caught the tiger and took her to the government office.
Oh, real fucking nice, guys.
The woodsman went along, beating a drum and shouting. Angered, the officials questioned him, and he told them the whole story. But they did not believe him. The woodsman said,
"Oh, you know, let me prove it to you. Then, you know, I'll if you don't, if I do wrong, you know, you can always beat me afterwards."
The woodsman put his arms around the tiger and said tearfully,
"Oh, Your Majesty, you know, you really saved my ass back there."
The tiger nodded, and the woodsman said,
"Your Majesty, you know, entered the gate to keep our appointment here, and now my pork's getting cold over there."
The tiger nodded again, and the man said,
"Oh, yeah, you know, sorry, you know, I'll plead for your life or something, you know. And if worst comes to worst, I'll just die with you, you know."
As the woodsman spoke, the tiger's tears fell to the ground. Of the many of thousands who witnessed this, not one stood unmoved. The astonished officials hastened to free the tiger, and then led her to the post station and threw her the promised pig. The tiger straightened her tail and made a feast of the pig, and afterwards she looked once more at the woodsman and departed. Later, this district was named after the trusty tiger.
The trusty tiger.
The trusty tiger. The end. Boom.
Boom. Boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
What would you think? I would think that the fucking tiger just has an eye infection or a bug in its eye. Like, don't trust that shit.
I think the tiger's longtime friends with the woodsman. It was clearly there to watch the Super Bowl.
Did he suck on her nipple?
He did. It's the part they don't talk about. When he wasn't drinking his own piss, which is something he did before he fell into the hole.
What was he even doing out there? He's a merchant.
Just merchanting around over here by these tiger holes.
Okay, I'll just try.
He's not a merchant, he's a woodsman.
How does a woodsman not know his footing?
Yeah.
Is he in a new forest that he didn't know?
He's in a magic forest.
Can't remember what story this is. Number 6.
Number 6.
The repentant tiger of coaching.
Chao Ching.
Chao Cheng.
Chao Cheng.
Chao Cheng. That was racist, Dustin.
You're racist.
A woman of Coaching who was...
Yeah, that probably sounds better.
was over 70 years old, had an only son. One day, he went into the mountains and was eaten by a tiger.
Oops.
The old woman grieved and grieved, ready to give up her life. Then the vociferous cries, she complained to the local authorities. The magistrate said with a smile,
"How can a tiger be subject to the law?"
This only aggravated the old woman's tantrum, and when the magistrate scolded her, she would not be intimidated.
Like, would we get him a tiger lawyer? Would he use a regular lawyer? I don't understand.
Because he felt sorry for her. That is pretty funny.
Will we just put him in jail with other people? I mean, he's a tiger.
Because he felt sorry for her, he kept his own temper and even ended by agreeing to have the beast apprehended.
Okay, I still don't understand it, but I guess we'll do it.
The old woman kneeled down before him, and she refused to leave until the warrant was actually issued. So the magistrate called for a volunteer on his staff to go and make the arrest. Li Ying, an agent who was drunk at the time, came forward and took the warrant, and the old woman left satisfied. When Li Ying sobered up, he regretted his offer. Still, he assumed that the warrant was only aroused to keep the old woman from creating a nuisance. So he turned it back to the magistrate casually, but the official said angrily,
No, you took the warrant. I mean, you've pretty much got to do it now. I don't know how or what you're going to do. Maybe get some tiger backup or something.
Cornered, the agent appealed to another warrant to deputize some hunters, and this the magistrate granted. Day and night, Lin Yang and his hunters now stalked the mountain hollows in hopes of catching a tiger. But more than a month passed without succession, and the agent was given a severe beating of 100 strokes. Having nowhere to turn for redress, he presented don't judge me. He presented himself at the shrine of the east of town.
Just thinking when you're talking about them all getting lashings too, just the magistrate of like, I don't understand any of this, but I'm a stickler for the rules, so let's do some lashings.
It took you a month and you still haven't found it? Yeah. A bounty hunter, motherfucker.
I thought you were Dog, the bounty hunter.
So he went to a shrine east of town. There he called on his knees for the local deity, crying until he had no voice. Soon, a tiger came up. Lin Yang was aghast, expecting to be eaten, but the tiger entered the shrine and, looking steadily at the agent, sat down on its haunches in the doorway. Lin Yang called to the tiger as though it were a deity and said,
Agent Lin Yang here. Yeah. If it was you who killed the woman's son, then you should submit to my arrest. You're under arrest, tiger.
Then the agent took out a rope and tied it around the tiger's neck.
You have the right to remain feline.
The tiger dropped his ears and accepted the rope, and the agent led the beast to the magistrate's office. The magistrate asked the tiger,
So, like, what? He said you had a confession? Did you eat the woman's son? What? How are we doing this?
The tiger nodded.
Holy shit. It's that easy.
The magistrate continues to say,
Well, those who take a life, they gotta die. That law is one of the older ones. I guess it applies to tigers also, but, we've never tested that.
It works.
Besides, the poor woman only had one son. How do you suppose she'll survive, those years that remain to her? However, we'll probably lash her just for being a part of this. However, if you should be able to, serve as her son, I don't even know why I'm pitching this. It's a very strange pitch here. We put you in a wig, and you pretend to be her son that you ate. She'll never know the difference. She's pretty much blind. I'll spare you then, I promise.
Again, the tiger nodded, and so they removed the ropes and sent the animal away. Though the old woman was grieved that the magistrate did not make the tiger pay with its life.
Son!
When the morrow dawned, the old woman opened her gate to find a deer carcass, which she took and sold for her daily necessities. This became a custom, though sometimes the tiger would bring money or silk in its mouth and flipped it into her yard, and so the woman became quite well-to-do. Far better cared for than when her son was alive.
Well, I do declare I like this new son.
She grew to feel deeply grateful for the tiger's kindness.
He went to college.
Eventually, the tiger would come and lie under the eaves of her house the whole day, and the people and the livestock no longer feared it. After several years, the woman died, whereupon the tiger came and bellowed in the front hall. The woman had saved up enough money for an ample burial service, and her kinsmen laid her to rest.
She died peacefully in her sleep of tiger-inflicted wounds.
When the mound over the tomb was completed, the tiger suddenly bounded up, and the mourners fled, and the tiger went straight to the front of the tomb, roared thunderously for a long while, and then departed. Local people set up a shrine to the loyal tiger by the eastern outskirts of the township, where it remains to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put up a shrine. I still don't understand any of this stuff. Did he go to a tiger college or was it a regular people college?
It was a public community college.
Was it an exchange program? Did we send a college student out to live with tigers?
Yeah, it comes from the magical realm of unicorns.
It's the tiger exchange program. So what we're going to do is take a tiger and put it in college, and then we're going to take one of the college students and put it in with a bunch of tigers. That doesn't sound safe for either of those, but I will go, okay.
It's a study. We're going to figure it out.
Hurry up, or I'm going to have to start giving some lashings.
Okay, story number 7.
Story numbers.
Tiger boys.
Tiger boys. Yeah, tiger boys.
In recent years, my village had a number of tigers.
It sounds like a thing like a 7-year-old me would have come up with. Yeah, we're a ninja gang and we're called Tiger Boys.
That does sound like it could be a pop group.
Yeah.
It's like an NSYNC shit.
We're the Tiger Boys.
Awesome. I wish I could see NSYNC dressed up in little tiger
This little
costumes.
tiger costume.
In recent years, my village has had a number of tigers, and they have chewed up more people than you can count. Travelers through most of China, in fact, have been similarly plagued. Some say tigers are agents of the highest in heaven, helping chase down those who have escaped their appointed death by violence. Others say tigers are manifestations of fierce demons and vengeful spirits in the state of agitation and frustration. There may be some truth in both views, but nothing as quite remarkable as the story of Old Man Huang. Old Huang was from Misi, several miles from the town of Chiao. He had 3 fully grown sons, and in the spring of the year...
Tiger Boys!
And in the spring of the year, he sent them to plow his fields in the hills. And for several days, they went out at sunup and returned home at dusk. One evening, the neighbor said to him, your fields are overgrown with weeds. Old Huang says,
Well, how could that be? My boys plow it every day, just like I plow your mother.
The neighbor answered,
I'm afraid not. Nobody plows my mom.
Puzzled, the old man secretly followed his 3 sons, and when they went out the next morning, he saw them enter the woods in the hills, remove their clothes, and hang them on a tree, and then change...
Tiger Boys!
And then went skinny dipping. No.
Yeah.
And then changed into tigers. Roaring and leaping, they emerged from the woods. Old Huang was terrified. He ran home and confided what he had seen to his neighbor, who then bolted his door and hid. The 3 came home that night and called at the gate for a long time, but no one answered. At last, the neighbor came out and explained that their father would no longer know them as sons because of what he had seen in the hills.
Hey, Si, you're getting all tigery up there.
The boys cried to their father.
Bruh. It's totally like we're tigers, but like it's not our thing like we wanted to do, you know? Like the highest in heaven, like he totally told us, he's like, bros, go be tigers. How could we like fail to repay your boundless generosities and whatnot, bro? Like you gave us mad shit. We feel like helpless because like you've been long destined for like calamity. We didn't tell you though. Like the past few days. We've been like raging up in the hills in hopes of finding someone who could like take your place.
Lots of LSD.
Yeah, we did LSD. We did Molly.
Jesus.
We went to a Skrillex show in the middle of the woods. Yeah. Dubstep will change your life, bro. We wanted to replace you and shit. And like, even now, after you discovered us, we're like, ew, we can't disobey our orders, but like, we totally just want to replace you. And the color of my clothes is like a small booklet. Like, if you get it, father, and like, yeah, otherwise, like, you're surely done, bro. And we three will like, we'll eat you. That's what I'm getting at, bro.
Old Huang took a lantern and searched in the collar where he found the little booklet. It was filled with the names of those in Chao who were to be killed by tigers. His own name was second from the top, and the old man asked,
"Who had seen more butts?" He's the number one name on it. What can be done?
The boy said,
"Well, just open the gate, bro. Like, we totally thought about something."
So old Huang did so. The boys took the booklet and, weeping, bowed to him, and they said,
"Well, this is all according to, like, the decree of the highest in heaven. But, like, now put on, like, a bunch of clothes, like, several layers. But, like, don't fasten the belt, you know. Stick yellow paper on top and pray pray super hardcore on your knees. We have our, like, own way of rescuing you."
Open wide.
Yeah, totally. Someone's going to put tiger balls on your chin. That's all I'm saying, bro.
Old Huang did as he was told. His 3 sons leapt over him from behind, each tiger catching a layer of clothes in its mouth, and as he dashed off with a great roar, never returned. The old man is alive to this day.
Sucks to suck, loser.
From ancient times, there have been many cases of men turning into tigers. Without fail, their hides and their faces were transformed, but it is unheard of for tigers to remain among men, and these 3 boys did. Moreover, once the highest in heaven had assigned them to kill the men, while at the same time putting their own father's name on the list, the sons were in the most difficult position, and if they had failed to find a substitute for their father, they did preserve his life with great integrity. It may be said that theirs was a change of form and not of heart. The world is full of those who appear human and yet fail to recognize the king or the father standing in front of them. What then of those who have become tigers and yet remain grateful to the kindness that they have enjoyed? How the highest could let the boy's own father be on the list of victims is beyond me.
It's beyond me. I don't even
That's
understand.
taboo.
I think they were making it all up. They just like calling themselves Tiger Boys. Tiger Boys! Tiger Boys! Tiger Boys?
Terrible pop band name now that I think about it.
It's our gang. We go around and we do tiger stuff. Meow.
We're in story 7.
Story 7.
Was the last one 7 or 6?
No,
I guess the last one was 6.
Yeah, it was. We're on to human bait.
Yes.
For tigers?
No, human bait.
Human bait.
It's
a 6-pack of beer and a pizza doing out in the middle of the woods.
Is
that a lit?
I'm going to say his name is Su. Hsu. Su? Su Shanken of Shantung Province made his living by digging ginseng roots, which are used in precious tonics. Traditionally, ginseng diggers must do their work at the darkest possible of nights. During one such night, Su became exhausted from digging and went to sleep under the sandy ground. He awoke to find himself clutched in the hands of a man some 30 feet tall, who was covered all over with reddish hair. The giant was stroking Su Shanshin and rubbing Su's body against his fur, as if he were playing with pearls or jades. At each stroke, the giant burst into a wild laughter, and Su reckoned that he was going to be the creature's next meal.
He was playing with him like he did his pearls. He had this long string with like 4 pearls on it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
He felt himself being carried off, and the giant took him to a cave containing mounds of such things as tiger sinew and deer tail and elephant tusk. And the giant placed Sue on the stone bed and offered him some tiger and deer meat. Although the ginseng digger was delighted to find that he himself was not going to be gobbled up, he could not eat the bloody chunks of flesh. The giant lowered his head as if he were thinking, and then he nodded as if he understood. He struck a stone and made a fire and drew some water and set a pot to boil. Cutting up the meat, he added it to the pot, and when the stew was ready, the giant presented it to Sue, who ate it with relish.
He's trying to romance.
As dawn approached, the giant took Sue and 5 arrows and went out of the cave to the base of a cliff. There, he tied Sue to a tall tree and withdrew, leaving the ginseng digger terrified that the giant meant to shoot him. Presently, a pack of tigers scenting a live human came out of the caves in the cliffside.
Meow.
They jolted at each other and in their haste to get Sue, and the giant drew his arrows and killed them. Then he
Are they giant tigers or are they just regular?
I think they're regular tigers. I don't know. They don't mention. I mean,
one of them was short and he feels insecure about it.
Look at the picture they chose to put with human bait. 2 frogs. Just hanging out. It has nothing to do with the frogs. Yeah, that makes sense. Then he untied Sue and carried him home in his arms, meanwhile dragging the dead tigers behind him.
Bad.
As before, he cooked them and offered him his captive a feast. For more than a month, Sue served the giant as tiger bait, and the ginseng tiger came to no harm, and the giant grew quite fat. But one day, Sue became homesick, and kneeling before the giant, implored him tearfully, pointing again and again to the east. Weeping also, the giant took Sue in his arms back to the place where he had been captured, and he'd show Sue the way home, and pointed out a number of choice ginseng patches. And that is how Su Shangchen became a wealthy man.
I think it's time you meet my parents, babe. Come home with me for vacation. These last years have been lovely, getting fresh meat, all the food I could ever want, occasionally stuck up your butt with a rope tied to my feet.
Well, that's the weird part for sure.
That's the weird part. Yeah. Oddly, it does it for me. I didn't think it would, but, once you're up there, you're just like, hey.
Hey.
I'm here now. Might as well enjoy it. Very snug.
It's like being embraced by warm pillows.
It's like a flesh sleeping bag.
Have you ever been encompassed by a waterbed?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Kind of like that. But a little more smelly. Slightly wetter.
It smells like roses and island breeze.
Smells like island breeze. Island breeze, Mom!
Moving on. We have story 8. Educated frogs and martial ants.
Dun, 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 dun.
When I was young and living in Palm Lane, I saw a beggar who had a cloth sack and 2 bamboo tubes. In the sack, he kept 9 frogs. The tube contained more than 1,000 ants, some red and some white. He would go on into the shop and display his act on the counter, and then demand 3 coppers and leave. One of his tricks was called the Frog Teaches School. He set up a small chair, and a large frog leaped out of the sack and sat on it. 8 smaller frogs followed him out and formed a circle around the chair, sitting perfectly still. The beggar cried,
Teach him!
At once a large frog croaked, Greek, and the class repeated in unison, Greek. And then, all anyone could hear was Greek, Greek.
Greek? He did say that. He just taught him Greek.
Until people's ears were ringing. So the beggar cried,
Stop!
And all at once was quiet. The other trick was called ants in battle formation. The beggar had 2 flags, one red and one white, and each about a foot long. He emptied his bamboo tubes onto the counter, and the red and the white ants scurried all over until he waved the red flag and said,
"Form ranks!"
The red ants formed themselves into a line, and next he waved the white flag and cried,
"Form ranks!"
The white ants did so too, and then he waved both flags and cried,
"A mixed formation."
And the ants mingled together and marched, turning left and right in perfect step. When they had made several rounds, he marched them back into their tubes. Thus, even such a small, dumb creature as a frog and an ant can be taught, though I can't imagine how it's done.
So I can't imagine. It's a very tough regimen of training. The frogs were actually already educated. They were Greek frogs, so it made sense that they could say Greek.
See, they were human form once and then turned into
That's
frogs.
the sad part. He goes around to villages and turns people into bugs or frogs. The sick part is sometimes he feeds the ants to the frogs.
Jesus, yeah. He's so fucked.
Story number 9.
That
The
looks like
final
it's our
story.
final one.
Yeah, moving on down the line.
Dang.
Big old story
Hope
number
you guys
9.
enjoy these ones. I like this one the most.
Mm-hmm.
The Snake Man. A man. Nice snake jazz.
Background jazz for you to do.
A man of what is now Hopi Providence made his living by taming snakes and teaching them tricks. Once he raised and trained 2 black snakes. The larger one he called Big Black, and the smaller Brother Black. Brother Black, who had red dots on his forehead, was very quick to learn his tricks. His twists and his turns were exactly right, and the Snake Man prized him above all the other snakes he had ever owned. After a year, Big Black died. The Snake Man wanted to replace him, but had not yet found the time to do, when he was lodging one night in the mountain temple. He awoke in the early dawn and opened his snake basket. Brother Black was missing. Calling frantically, the Snake Man reached in the dim light, but there was no trace of the snake. In the past, whenever the Snake Man had come upon a dense grove or a thick vegetation, he stopped to let Brother Black free to enjoy himself. Brother Black always returned, and so the Snake Man had no reason to hope that the snake would not come back now. He sat down to wait, but when the sun had climbed high into the sky, he despaired and left. He had gone several paces away from the temple when he heard a low scraping sound in the depths of the thicket. Startled, he stopped and turned back. It was Brother Black. The Snake Man felt overjoyed as if he had regained his priceless jewel. He stopped to rest at a turn on the road, and the snake stopped also. When the Snake Man looked again, he saw a smaller snake following Brother Black. The Snake Man says while stroking Brother Black,
I thought you were lost to me. Are you presenting your little companion?
He took out some food for Brother Black and his follower, and the snake, smaller snake, curled up, too wild and shy to eat. So Brother Black fed the newcomer from his mouth in much the way that a host serves his guest first. The Snake Man gave the small snake more food, and this time he ate himself. When the meal was over, the small snake followed Brother Black into the basket, and the Snake Man carried the basket off. And when the new snake began to learn tricks, he performed them all perfectly, just as Brother Black did. So the Snake Man named the newcomer Baby Black. He took his act all over the country and made a handsome profit. As a rule, men who handle snakes have to discard them when they grow more than 2 feet long, for they weigh too much to be handled, and the Snake Man kept Brother Black as he grew beyond the limit because he was so tame. But after another couple years, the snake reached 3 feet and filled the basket entirely, so the Snake Man decided to let him go. One day, when he came to the eastern hills of present-day Sinan, the Snake Man fed Brother Black something special and gave him his blessing and freed him.
Oh, the weed brownie.
I know, right? The snake went off for a while, but then returned and circled his basket. The snake man shooed him away, saying,
Be off. No party lasts forever, and the best of friends must part. Retire into the valley, and soon enough you are sure to become a divine dragon. Why do you want to remain here in a basket?
Brother Black wiggled away again, and the snake men watched him go for a long time. But again the snake returned. When the snake men shooed him away this time, he refused to leave and knocked his head against the basket. Baby Black was inside and becoming restless. Then it occurred to the snake man that Brother Black must want to say goodbye to Baby Black. He opened the basket, and Baby Black came straight out and wrapped himself around Brother Black. Their tongues flickered as if they were talking to each other. And then they both went off in a carefree manner. The snake man thought that Baby Black would not return, but after a while he undulated back into the sulky sort of way and finally crawled into the basket. The snake man never again found a specimen so perfect as Brother Black. Meanwhile, Baby Black was growing larger and unfit for handling. The snake man acquired another snake that was rather tame but not the equal of Baby Black, who was by this time as thick as a child's arm. When Brother Black...
Not the only thing that's thick.
Hey. When Brother Black first began to live in the hills, a number of woodsmen saw him. Years later, he had grown several feet and was as thick as a bowl. He began to come out and chase people, and travelers were soon warning one another, and no one dared enter the snake's territory. One day, the snake man was crossing the hills, and the snake shot out at him like wind. Terrified, the snake man ran. The snake pursued him and was about to overtake him when the snake man saw the telltale red dots on his head. The snake man cried,
Brother Black, is it you?
Setting down his burden, at once the snake stopped, lifted his head, and after a long while coiled himself around the snake man, as he used to when they worked together.
You're squeezing too hard.
The snake man realized that the snake meant no harm, but the reptile's body was so heavy and the man fell to the ground. He pleaded to be released, and the snake unwrapped himself and then knocked against the basket. Realizing what Brother Black wanted, the snake man let Baby Black out. When the two snakes met, they twisted around one another and clung tightly. After a lingering interval, they separated. The snake man gave his blessing to Baby Black, saying,
For a long time I've wanted to let you go. Now you have a companion.
To Brother Black, he said,
You brought him to begin with. Now you may take him away. One more word. There's plenty to eat in these hills. Don't disturb the travelers and suffer heaven's punishment. Whoa.
The two snakes lowered their heads, as if accepting that,
Snake man.
I lost my train of thought. So sorry. The snake lowered their heads, as if accepting the oddman.
They nodded at him. That's the
Yeah,
big
they
thing
just
in all
fucking
these
understood.
stories, the power nod. They power nodded
nod.
at him. He power nodded back, and it was just like they knew.
Then they perked up and began to move, the elder in front and the younger following. Where they passed, branches split under their weight, and the snake man watched until he could see what of them no longer, and then left. No one knows where the snakes went, but travelers had no further problems. The snake, though a dumb creature, shows affection and loyalty to a friend, as it also readily teachable. How striking, in contrast, is he who seems human, but throws away a 10-year friendship, or alienates a prince whose favor his family has
Someone's getting over some
enjoyed
shit.
for generations.
And who puts their feet up on my goddamn couch, Carl?
I feel like this author is trying to like call out some motherfuckers.
He's got someone specifically. Yeah. And who would eat the last piece of bread and just leave the butt pieces for me to get to? Carl.
Who ate my cinnamon roll?
Who ate my goddamn cinnamon roll?
Remember when I freaked out like 7 years ago? With fairness, Cinnabon just closed down, and that was like my shit, dude.
Yeah, this story took a weird left turn at the end. That's the story of the snakes,
Not
but
done,
you should know it,
motherfucker.
you fucking snake.
We gotta listen to who he's ranting about. You ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Or who alienates a prince whose favors his family has enjoyed for generation, who dumps rocks on a wrench, who has fallen down a well, or makes enemies of those who gives him good advice. Thank you. Yeah.
Who does?
This must be someone close because you're making enemies with someone who
That's
gave
what I
you
was
good
saying.
advice.
He's specifically
Who
calling
is
out
he
someone.
calling in?
Carl.
Pu Sheng Ling. That's who it's by. Who's this?
Who is this? Who is this?
Who is this that has become an enemy from you trying to give good advice?
Yeah.
I was just trying to give you advice, motherfucker. You didn't have to be such an
I think
asshole.
that would be the best way to be an asshole to someone, though, is you start with a long and complicated story. There was once a man who kept snakes as pets. And by the time you get to the end, you're like, and you know, aside from that, we should always refill the water when we take the last water, Carl. Don't eat the last donut.
Who left the toilet seat up, motherfucker?
Who left the toilet seat up? That's what I'm saying. Did you just do a 7-minute long story just to
Just talk shit on the last part. I wanted it to be known.
Yeah.
How do I get this into the history books
And
forever?
the story of the great snake charmer reminds me that someone took a shit in the toilet and didn't flush it.
I know who fucked my mom. It wasn't my
I know
dad.
who fucked my mom. Mailman Gary.
Sleepyhead Gary.
Yeah. See, that's the only thing I think would be better if he actually called out someone at the end.
I just
Bill?
wish it was Pu Sheng Yi.
Yeah.
Pu Sheng Yi.
Pu Sheng Yi. Yeah, damn Pu Sheng Yi.
Wow.
Pissed in my Cheerios. And that's the story of the snake tamer. Snake Man.
I'm just going to say go ahead and like.
Subscribe, share,
Subscribe,
follow, tell your
share.
friends. We're all about that word of mouth, so put your mouth out there. Put your mouth to work for us.
Check out our shop.
Check out our shop.
teesprings.com/high-mythology-merch.
Yeah, there you go. Check it out.
Get those leggings.
Look it up.
Water
Get
bottles
some
are cool.
stuff. There's some cool stuff on there.
I really like those. It's great.
Yeah, good stuff. Check us out. Find us on Twitter at Howley_boys, HAOLE_BOYS. We're going to be doing some polls. Some polls to let you people, you out there, our listeners, our fans, our friends, determine what stories are coming up in the future.
Oh, it's not a Polish poll?
Not a Polish poll. We're going to go wide with this poll. I'm going to cast a larger. I'm going to be like that guy from the story with the 14-inch pole. The one that accidentally bludgeoned a dude to death.
What kind of pole is it? Like one that Cardi B would dance on?
Oh,
or?
it's a big old flesh pole.
Oh, shit.
No, it's going to be a pole.
Drake.
Yeah. This is a poll about what kind of poles people prefer to use. We're going to do a poll.
Poles.
Do you prefer iron? Metal? Tin?
Beaded.
Beaded? Yeah.
Round.
Round?
What kind?
All right, everybody. Good night.
Night.